I am Victoria L. Burson. This is Leadership on the Go. Leadership is not always preparedness for the unknown, but it is tapping into the unknown prepared.
Victoria, you muted?
Good evening. Good evening. Guess what? Our mishap for season 2. Thank you so much for being a part. Thank you, Sue. Listen, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you can tag, like, and share with your family, with your friends, those whom you know in leadership or want to live life on purpose and lead well, please do that. Like, tag, and share. We will definitely be on replay. And even for those who will be on replay, please like, tag, and share all over. Guess what? For season 2, we're just not on Facebook, but we're on YouTube and Instagram. So to God be the glory. Yes, yes, yes. And we have Kara Solutions to thank for that, in which we will introduce towards the end of this program. Listen, season 2 proves to be a phenomenal season. Listen, we got some really, really great guests that will be a part. I've already started advertising who our March leaders will be, who will be speaking, and that is Charlotte Stallings. Listen, she is phenomenal. She is, we'll talk about her towards the end because I don't want to, spoil everything now. I want to get into the program. But again, like, tag, share, start a watch party, if you will, for this evening. And this evening, we're going to be dealing primarily with, may I share before we do this, what I wanted to share. I have to, be very transparent, in which a lot of people who know me know that I'm very transparent. And that is that we're going a different direction with Leadership on the Go. Not too much, but we're really, really wanting to focus season 2 and beyond, really focus on leadership, reimagining leadership differently. That's why this installment is called Leadership Reimagined. Leadership Reimagined. And the people that come to mind are Black and brown bodies, particularly this month of Black History Month and all that has happened prior to, and all that has happened during COVID and still continues to happen, and all that has happened at the Capitol and the racism. I'm really wanting to bring in leaders who can help us transform and transfigure, if you will, those who need to be transformed versus those who need to be transfigured, totally made whole, made complete. And so we want to focus on a new kind, a way of doing Leadership on the Go. And that is for people, Black and brown bodies, if you will. I'm not ashamed to announce that. I'm not ashamed because I am unapologetically African American, and we just lead differently. Where for so long, people of white descent have wanted us to assimilate, and some haven't assimilated. I have even been guilty of assimilating. And we want to talk about leading from the margins of society. So we're going to be bringing in some phenomenal leaders who will be speaking in the particular area. We'll bring in faith leaders. We'll bring in non-faith leaders. We'll bring in the medical expertise. We'll bring in leaders from all over and from every spectrum of that we can bring in people. So let's get started. We won't be long. I just wanted to come before you this evening, before we get into season 2, as an African American woman, looking at the ways in which I used to lead versus how God has had me. Yes, God has had me leading spiritually, redirecting the ways in which I think about leadership and the ways in which I lead, and the ways that even I have been training others about leadership, which has been phenomenal. So I said the last couple of years, but that was for me personally. But I've always been on this journey of teaching, because God has called me to be a leader of leaders. And I've always been on this journey of showing leaders how to lead authentically. And that's how we're going to start. It's a good segue in how we're going to start. Everybody. I mean, I don't know one person that I have talked to, and I know you don't know anybody that has not experienced some kind of setback, some kind of feeling, some kind of way in their feelings about COVID and what COVID has done to this world, to this economy, to our cultures, and how it has, under certain leadership that we don't want to follow, incited a group of people who think it's okay to hate and to lead and to discriminate in the ways in which they have been discriminating. And so when I think about the marginalized, the disenfranchised, if you will, and the ways in which we lead from society, even if you have a high position, even if you are up on the status realm, if you will, but we need to be able to communicate to the spectrum of leaders, right? Those who lead from the top, those who lead from the middle, and those who lead from the bottom. And so leadership is leadership and is one's ability to influence another. And we all have the ability to influence someone. But when we lead, we want to live well so we can lead well, right? So we want to live on purpose so we can lead with passion. And so let's go into some things that I have learned for myself and the ways in which I have reimagined, and I'm still reimagining, and if you will, reimagine the ways in which you lead. And you can put it, you can like, tag, and share, and put comments. And Kara Solutions will let me know of those comments if there are any. If you have any questions, you can feel free. We'll leave room at the end and talk about that at the end. So again, not one person that I know of and don't know of has not been affected by COVID. And so we have to reimagine leadership. And how can you do that? The only ways I know how to reimagine leadership is to think back how I did leadership, how I am doing leadership, how culturally relevant that is, depending on the context in which I am in. And so it could be a church context, it can be a professional context, it could be within a hospital as a chaplain context. We have to look culturally how we lead in certain spaces and all spaces, if that makes sense. And so one of the things that I believe that we need to do, and one of the things that I've been doing the last couple of years, ever since a shift has taken place in my life and I decided to jump. How many of you have jumped? Before COVID, you just decided there's something else that God has for you. There's something else you want to do. You're being pulled to something. You're being forced into something, right? And we'll talk about what that forcing is, and know that you know something is there. You know something is coming up or down the pike, depending how you see it, and how full the glass is versus how empty the glass is. However you're being pushed or pulled is relevant, particularly in this season. And so I've been prompted some time ago and started viewing leadership differently and the ways in which I want to do leadership, right? It's all about a desire as well. And so one of the things, the first thing we want to start off with, and I'm going to be looking at my notes that I have making. I still like to write, I don't like to put things in. It's not about being old school. I just like my handwriting, right? So one of the things I want to challenge us on is, in order to start fresh and lead well, there are some things that we have to consider. Can we start with that? So the first thing I think we need to consider is to be authentically intentional. Be authentically intentional. Being authentically intentional, when we are authentically intentional, living out our intentions or our actions in life, the reason that I would like to talk about this particular nugget is that a lot of times we lead with intention, but not authentically. We're not being authentically ourselves. We're not being authentically who we are as a whole person. A lot of times we lead based on how people see us and how we want people to see us. But is that the authentic way to lead and be intentional in that authenticity and in exercising your power and your authority in which it has been given to you to do so in that realm? Does that make sense to anybody? And so we have to authentically lead. How do we authentically? We got to include, however we're going to move forward, we got to include some of the failures and mistakes. We cannot just skip them and sweep them under the rug. Listen, everybody, everyone is going to make mistakes. You are going to make a mistake. Everyone is going to fail. You're going to fail at something. And you're going to let people down. As long as we live, people will always hurt us, and we will always hurt someone, even if it's not intentionally. So to live authentically in your truth, to live authentically in the wisdom that God has already bestowed upon you, is to move totally in your total authentic self. I know this is sounding simple, and I want it to. I'm not trying to be all up here. I want to be extremely how God has given it to me and how I've had to be my authentic self. I remember for some of you, you know that I have been in church all my life. I love church. I'm a product of the Black church, and I appreciate being a part of the Black church and loving my track and loving my education and everything. But a lot of times when I was trying to answer this call all through the last 30 years of answering this call to ministry, if I will use this platform for that, people say, you're going to be the next so-and-so. You're going to be the next so-and-so. You sound just like so-and-so. And then my father, being a third generation pastor in my family, grandmother was a pastor, father was a pastor. I felt as though I needed to emulate, hear me now, parts of my dad, parts of my grandmother, which makes me Baptist because she was Pentecostal, he was Baptist. And then as I was, matriculating through this journey, I was also experiencing in seminary and undergrad, Bible college, those who felt like I was going to be the next this, and girl, you're going to be the next that, and going to, bishop so-and-so and overseer so-and-so, and you need to. And so I was building up, listen, my ego was building up what others were saying about me rather than what God was saying about me. Matter of fact, can I be honest with you? I didn't even know how to process what God was saying about me. So I had to depend on family and friends and colleagues and what others said about me, which helped shape me. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes we need that nudge. But when I started feeling like that wasn't fitting, I still was trying to force it. And so leaders, we have to be authentically intentional about being who we are called to be in this season and in this time as leaders, and how we have been shaped to be that leader. And so being authentically and intentional, if we buy into constantly what others are saying or have envisioned for our trajectory in life, we will live that out miserably. Can I say that again? There are some people who are entering into, whether you want to be an attorney, you want to be a doctor because daddy was a doctor, mama was an attorney, you want to be this, and God is calling you to be the greatest barber, because do you know, being a barber, you come into contact with a whole lot of people, and God is going to have you bless a whole lot of people, and a whole lot of things happen in that community. And so be honest with yourself with what you want to do. There are some of you who are feeling somewhat debilitated in where you are as a leader. And you don't have to, if you authentically, I want to say that again, authentically, intentionally grasp who you are in this season. COVID has done that for a lot of us. We've had a whole year, you all, to sit with COVID, to sit with ourselves, to sit with our anxious selves. I'm an extrovert I'm an introvert who functions as an extrovert. People don't believe that, that I'm a little shy. And I know people are probably saying, yeah, right, that's watching this. But can I tell you that living authentically myself in my 50s have been so rewarding. Not truly worrying about if I fit in, Where should I fit in? But just totally being myself. Uh, and I jumped. So I want to say I jumped 2 years ago from pastoring. And I didn't know how that would pan out. And can I tell you, um, there were some major shifts, but shifts are supposed to happen when you get ready to authentically live your life. Jumping is always going to cause a major shift. Some people jump up 1 foot, and some people jump a whole building. So please honor who you are authentically so that you can authentically, intentionally be who you are called to be in this season. And so that you can lead with intentionality, right? I had to preach for Bishop Abrams recently, and their whole thing was the year of intention. And I told her it was so ironic because for the last 5 years, me and my wife, we always give each other a word that we're going to live out. And I have not changed from being intentional. And I have been living out what that means every year. How are you being authentically you in your intentionality? It takes some time and it takes some effort, but how are you shaping and how is God reforming you? And how are you hearing and seeing God in everything that you do? Because outside of God, you will not be able to accomplish this. I'm not trying to be overly spiritual, but it's my reality. It's who I am, right? And so being authentically intentional is key. That's the first thing we do. And remember that it includes mistakes. It includes our failures. And remember to envision your future by what you feel and where you feel you're going versus how others are trying to shape it. When you allow others to shape where you should be, who you should be, who you should hang around with, and who you shouldn't be friends with, etc., you start putting on layers and pounds of weight that you are not intended to carry. And when you put on that kind of weight and you carry that weight, I'm telling you right now that that weight will burden you so much and it will debilitate who you're called to be, right? You have your own weight to carry. You don't need to carry who you think people are saying that you need to be. Y'all got me on that? Because it's very important that you understand. So the first one is the first nugget I would give you out of my own experience. And remember, these are nuggets on how to live with purpose and lead with passion, starting fresh, right? But there's some nuggets I want to give before we can start fresh. And that is we got to start thinking authentically, intentionally about where we are, who we are right now. Okay. And so the second thing that I want to say is that we have got to understand that disappointment creates opportunity. Number two, disappointment creates opportunity. Number two, I'm going to say it for the third time so you can hear me. Disappointment creates opportunity. Listen, how many of you been disappointed? And what does disappointment do for you? Brings hurt, it brings grief. How are you disappointed? But the thing that God had to show me in this whole leadership and reimagining, remember, we're reimagining leadership. And so in order for me to have reimagined leadership, my old way of thinking, my old way of stinking thinking, my old mindset could not house how God was going to move me forward because I was still holding on how I was going to land with what I already knew. And can I tell you, it's okay that you jump or that you land or you jump into the chaos. And, people say, God is not an author of chaos. I beg to differ because God created this whole universe out of chaos. And so I don't want to get in that. I keep going there. But let me say this, that disappointment creates opportunity. How many of you ever been so upset, but next thing you know, ideas are pouring down. They didn't hire you for that promotion, or they're trying to bamboozle you on your job, or someone, a mentor or a pastor or a bishop or an overseer didn't skip you to the next level of ministry. And so you really got pissed off, if I can say that. And so sometimes that kind of disappointment will edge us to our real authentic self and create opportunity. Disappointment creates opportunity. I need you to hear me in that. So when you are next time you're disappointed and you're sad, get your journal, get a paper, get a pen, go take a walk, take a drive, go to the beach, however you go play in the snow, because can I tell you that opportunity is about to hit you like it never hit you before, even in the midst of COVID. You're feeling stuck. You're feeling like, I don't know how to move from here. You're feeling, I don't know where to take my church from here. You're feeling, I don't know where to go with my ministry from here. You're feeling, are you relevant? You know, all of that are good questions that you take to the opportunity moment. Remember, but disappointment, which sometimes can lead to chaos, still creates opportunity. And you got to take advantage of every opportunity given to you when you're disappointed. Most of us want to wait till we feel good. Most of the time, we only want to move when we feel good, when we take a Tylenol, when we take ibuprofen. We want to move. I mean, there are people right now who know, about my health situation, but I keep moving. There are some friends that you need to sit down. I am resting when I need to rest, but it is opportunity that is coming in the midst of my disappointment or chaos, right? Opportunity happens in chaos. I keep saying it because I need you to get it into your psyche that opportunity happens, and it happens in the midst of disappointment and out of chaos. All right. So the third one is, the first one is be authentically intentional. Second one is disappointment creates opportunity. The next one really stemmed from a conversation in which arose in a class, if you will, when I was entering into a pastoral doctoral program, and I didn't finish because things happened and I deferred it. And it's okay. At first I beat myself up, and that's where I'm trying to tell you, got to reimagine leadership. And I no longer do that. When my time is to do or advance academics, then God will say so. So, but in the meantime, Dr. Donaldson, who will be on the show in a month, I remember sitting in the classroom, and he asked such a pivoting question, if you will. And he asked the question, if my substance or your substance is being challenged, can I fully embrace my full self and bring my full self to the table that I may be able to start fresh? So in essence, he asked a question, in my substance, who I am right now, Victoria Burson, right? I am Victoria Burson, but Coach Victoria is what I do. Pastor Victoria is what I do, right? My substance. And I had to get to know my substance. I got to know my substance more in the last 2 years than I ever got to know my substance in the total 58 years that I am. So in the last 2 years, I had to be challenged by so many things: health, next steps in life, career, academics, you name it, bills piling up. Come on, y'all. Can I just be real with you? I'm not one of those phonies. I just want to be able to just come at you from how God has come to me. And so all I'm doing is sharing some nuggets that I've experienced. And I want to share with you how we can start fresh and still lead well, right? I had to start fresh in 2019 because I took a leap of faith. I jumped. And I didn't have anything planned. I jumped, spoke it over with my spouse, got her support. And no, when I jumped, she had to jump with me. I couldn't jump by myself. She had to jump with me, right? And so when you're going to have that support, have the support of people who are going to jump with you, because not everybody's going to jump with you. So make sure you have the support of those who are going to jump with you. And so I had to understand my substance, my total substance. So if my substance is being challenged, can I bring my full self still to the table? That's challenging. It sounds simple, but it's challenging. That if your full substance is no longer where it used to be or where you thought it should be or where you think it should be. And I know God right now is stirring up in some of you some ideas about where you want to go, but God got to deal with the person. Come on. God got to deal with the substance. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. So listen, the substance, you are the substance. And can you bring fully to the table once you are challenged in every area of your life? Can you still bring your full self to the table and be authentically you, even if you're angered, even if you're saddened, even if you're happy, full of joy? Can you still operate and bring your full self when your substance, do y'all hear what I'm saying? When your substance has been challenged. I got a lot of friends I lived in Texas for almost 5 years. I got a lot of friends who've been displaced because of the storm. Can they still bring their full self in the midst of all those challenges? Freezing, broken pipes, flooded homes. Can they, having to live in their car, generators about to blow up, went out? I mean, when your substance is challenged, can you still be faithful to bring your whole self to the table? Can I tell you, you need to be able to do this in order to start fresh. Starting fresh does not mean you're starting over necessarily. Starting fresh just means that something has shifted. We're perpetually, if I was to be able to tell you the truth, we are perpetually starting fresh. We're perpetually starting fresh. God is continuing to move. God is not stagnant. God doesn't stay still. So how do we expect to stay still? So when your substance is challenged, my substance was challenged. How do you handle that challenge? And can you still bring your full self to the table? All right. The other thing that I want to bring up is how are you reimagining leadership and starting fresh? What kind of ethic are you bringing to the table around living well and starting fresh and around reimagining leadership? What kind of ethic is the ethic that you bring to reimagining leadership so that you can start fresh, an ethic of the old or ethic of the new? Is it an old wineskin or is it a new wineskin? Are you recreating, redesigning, rebuilding, starting afresh? Are you bringing those ideas to the surface? Or are you trying to start new but cram old? I know that was part of one, but you're going to hear me be repetitive in some of these nuggets. And one of the things I had to learn how to do, in living well, starting fresh and living well and leading well, is that I had to really refocus ethically how I view leadership, how I'm going to do leadership. Remember, everyone is called to be a leader. Everyone, I believe, is a leader. Now, if anybody wants to challenge me, we can go to Genesis 1 and I think 26, 27, and where God has given dominion to everyone except for over each other. That's a whole new sermon or a whole new leadership teaching class. But can I tell you that everyone has the ability to be a leader? I was on a platform today for service today, and a 6-year-old boy was leading parts of that service with the welcome, with announcements, different things. And it was just so amazing that we include all generations, particularly our youth and our young adults, in everything that we do. And I was, sitting in amazement, not in amazement because the youth was doing it, because a lot of churches do that. There's nothing new to that. But you've had to been there to see the intellect on this 6-year-old with his headphones in and really engaged in the service, the whole service, right? He is reimagining leadership, and his family is reimagining leadership for him and supporting him along, right? And there's one at Bishop-elect's church who does t-shirt. Her family is reimagining entrepreneurship. What are you bringing to the table ethically? Are you bringing your own ethics and your own morals and your own levels of integrity? Or are they borrowed and you're bringing borrowed ethics? When I say borrowed, they can still be borrowed from how you used to do and how you used to be. Remember, in order to move in this day and age, we're going to have to move swiftly, because I believe God is moving so quickly. Shifts are going to happen after shifts. We're going to see a whole lot of stuff happening, right? There's going to be times you ain't going to have time to think on your feet. You're just going to have to move. But what ethics are you bringing to this whole notion of reimagining leadership? How is your level of integrity, right? Not what we see what you do, but when we're not looking at you, how are you treating others? How are you treating family? How are you treating a disappointment? How are you treating a letdown? Right? And so it is very important. Trust me, because what you put out there, what ethic you guide yourself by, what ethic you follow yourself by is creating your leadership style, is creating who you are, right? We recreate all the time. So there's some ethics of the way I used to believe, how I used to do things that I will not do anymore or never will do again, because I have seen the outcome of that. If you are going to be honest with yourself as a leader, hear me now, you have got to include how you handle things ethically, morally. It is important. It is important. These two kissing cousins are important in how you bring yourself to the table. There are some things I would used to do, and I'm not ashamed to say that, and not ashamed when I've done it, because you do things because you think it's right to do, and you do things in your life because it's the best for you. But right now, I bring a whole new ethic. I bring a little bit from before my integrity. I've always been an honest and straightforward person. Anybody knows me, a person of integrity. No need for me to lie. But how you do leadership in this season of COVID, the children are watching, the youth are watching, the non-person who don't believe in the ways in which you believe in faith, right? The Christians are watching, the Buddhists are watching, the Hindus are watching. Everyone now is watching. COVID has heightened the ways in which we see. And if you don't have a new ethic for the ways in which God has you reimagining anything that you do, ministry, job, organizations, nonprofits, schools, right? If you don't change the ethic, then it will change and shift you. So it is important that we understand how we bring that. Listen, this is some good meat. I'm just taking my time to give it to you. I'm not going to be before you long. I just want to share with you. Please like, tag, and share with some others. This whole notion of reimagining leaders, starting fresh. And remember, starting fresh does not necessarily mean starting over. It just means that we're starting anew, afresh, right? It's like a fresh wind and it's a fresh fire, right? And that we are starting with a new breath and a new way of believing about ourselves first, about how we manage reimagining leadership. So another point that I want to bring is that we have to stop dismembering ourselves from our spirit and the ways we believe about God. Everything we do in order to be successful, I don't care what faith movement you're part of, outside of God, it is hard to please God without faith. But it's even harder not to include your full self, and that's your spiritual self. And there are a lot of times people like to dismember who they are spiritually from their sexual self and from their physical self. Again, got to bring the whole you to the table if you're going to live in this season and this time of leadership. Hear what I'm saying? You got to bring your whole full self. You cannot dismember your spiritual self. There are other people trying to do that for us. I am a queer woman. I can say that now. The word queer, I used to couldn't say that because I wouldn't own it. When it was reframed by white men and women. So I own what it means in the meaning of the meaning, right? And so I own Black queerness, and as a queer woman who's same gender loving, who has a wife, had to, I was in the closet. I'm talking to somebody out there. I was in the closet for 44 years. Come on, somebody. I was in the closet, but a lot of people, except for family and friends, people close to me. And when I came out, it's seminary, right? And it came out from a book that my professor and my mentor at the time, Dr. Stephen Sprinkle, would have us to read. And I was in class with a lot of traditional brothers and sisters who did not believe. And before then, I would allow people who were mentors, people who were pastors over me, etc., to dismember who I was as a total individual, right? And how I identified in the world. And I had to become secretive about it. I'm helping someone. I had to become secretive about it because I have not bought into this whole notion of being a gay woman in the world that I was living in, which was totally a world, but it was from the edges and it was from the margins, but I didn't know how to process that at the time. So I bought in to what others were saying about me. Getting back to point one, I bought into what others were saying about me and believed it until I became, I had to deal with this internalized homophobia, right? Right? In the church with a whole bunch of lesbians and gay people. But I would make sure, and I was told not to hang around them by straight people, right? And so when you bring and when you gather yourself and you are to do leadership and reimagine leadership, you have got to first identify and be okay with how you identify, even as a Black woman who is straight in the pulpit, right? Even as a Black woman who is heterosexual in the workplace and you're a head of a department, you have to be secure in who and whose you are, right? You have to be okay. You cannot let anyone, just because you don't have a degree and you get promoted in the ranks, right? You get promoted in the ranks and people trying to figure out how did she or he get promoted when they don't even have a master's, they don't even have a bachelor's, they don't even have a PhD. Listen, God, that's why I said you got to do this with God. You can't do it outside of God. And I don't care what faith movement you're part of, whether it's your higher power, whether it's the energy, however you choose to look. But mine is God. I'm a Christian woman, unapologetic about that. I'm a Christian woman, and mine is God. And I cannot do anything outside of God. And there were times I did unintentionally, right? So I'm intentional about making sure I include God in everything. So I will not and no longer let anyone dismember who I am as a gay woman, a lesbian woman, as a Black woman, and as a woman, period, right? Where some people may think that is 3 knots against me, that is 3 blessings for me. And so you have to see yourself the way God sees you, fearfully and wonderfully made. You have to see yourself the way God make you, the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. And it doesn't mean that you always have to be the manager or the director or the overseer. It just means that you have to see yourself in headship, right? And not at the totem poles and marginalized in the ways in which some of the people in society see us. So again, I have to go back to when I came out. It was easy for me to come out of seminary. But when I came out, one of my seminary friends said, so now what you going to do? You came out to the whole class. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. We went to lunch and we had more discussions around what happened. And people were waiting for me to say something, but I wouldn't say anything because I had to process that bad boy by myself. But we still got into this whole notion, those terror passages that they were trying to throw out in this book and trying to understand why Sodom, Gomorrah and all that. I know you guys, some of y'all know the story, but a lot of people don't because they're ignorant to the text and what the Bible is really saying, because we have people who've been to school and go back to business as normal, but they got to deal with that. That's why you got to be secure in who you are. You got to be secure in who God says you are. And if you're not secure, work on it. Seek help if you have to. Therapist, counselor, a spiritual director, however you need that help, a coach, you can call me. But there are plenty of coaches out there that can help you along the way to get there. But see yourself the way God sees you and understand that you don't have to dismember who you are to be part of something. And what do I mean by that? You don't have to ontologically become something to be something. And what I mean by that is that you don't have to pretend to fit in just to get in. You don't have to do that because your authentic self at some point will show up. And most of the time, our authentic self shows up when we have been putting on a facade for so long, shows up in anger and disappointment. And I said that there's opportunity in that, but you got to be sure that you can find that opportunity in that anger. So do not allow people to dismember who you are. Whether if you know you are a preaching machine, do not let just because people are not inviting you. I was talking to a friend of mine about 3 weeks ago, and he was feeling a little bothered. And I said, you don't have to worry about that. We're in COVID season, so you can go and preach to the trees if you want to. Get a Zoom account. Do a video and do some break. We're in a season where we're in virtual world, so people will listen to you. You are a preacher machine. So we cannot buy into or allow people to dismember who we are in society. Point blank. If you're going to reimagine leadership, start fresh. Start fresh with not allowing people to dismember who you are. That means family. That means loved ones. That means children. It means moving forward with that which you've been thinking about and dreaming about. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm almost done. So, of course, I'm not going to get through all of these. I'm going to save some of them for later. But what did we say for the first one? We said we got to authentically be intentional. We could be intentional without being authentic. So we can't go back over that. We also got to understand that disappointment creates opportunity. We also have to question the substance, the person, the identity, how we identify who we are, whose we are, the substance. If it's challenged, can you still fully bring your whole self to the table? It's very important. Can you bring your whole self to the table? And then what is your ethic? Not just your work ethic. What is your leadership ethic? What is your living ethic? What are some things you're just not going to settle for anymore? You're just not going to settle for it anymore. You get to the point. I know people say, well, I do it too. Being older does bring a sense of wisdom. My wife and I were talking today as she was in her study, and she had a very pivotal kind of question. And we stayed at that thing for about 2 hours, which caused me to be late for some stuff. But she was talking about, she asked me she asked me metaphorically, or she asked me the question, can wise people have wisdom? Right? And we went through a whole bunch of scriptures. We went through a whole bunch of non-scriptures. We went through some philosophical thoughts behind wisdom and being wise, because then we had to untangle, what does it mean when God says be wise as a what? Serpent. So we had to go break down Hasatan and what does a serpent mean in the first dispensation of a serpent. I just like to do that kind of stuff. And then we just had this long talk, and then we had to talk about, the Bible also saying, I'm just taking a moment here to be a little spiritual. The Bible also talks about how the serpent in Genesis, the serpent is the most wise or crafty creature on earth. And so we had to break that down. And so when we talk about not bringing your whole self, we got to talk about, all of these things. Don't allow yourself to be dismembered. Bring all of you. If you're highly intelligent, don't let anybody dummy down your education. I did that. Can I say I did that? I did that because I was around people who could not celebrate my education or would lord it over my head. And sometimes I wondered if I was lording it over them unconsciously, And so I dummied it down in order to fit in. I will never, ever, ever do that again. I will never dummy down who I've been called in this earth to be, to undo and dismember myself and my identity. People cannot accept that. That's where they are. That's all about them and not where I am. And I will be okay, right? I will be okay. And you will be okay, but never dismember who you are. If you got a PhD, celebrate it. I know some people got 3, 4, and 5. Celebrate it. You did the work. You did a lot of work. I got some people friends and colleagues who just graduated with their DMin, and I'm so happy for them. It's very inspiring. So if you can celebrate other people, then you will be able to celebrate yourself even better, right? And so, never let anybody dismember you, right? Never ever live in survival mode your whole life. I realize majority of my life and why I have anxiety, and why I've had anxiety. I don't claim it now, but I used to have to take medicine for anxiety. And I realized I was always in survival mode. And I am not going to live in survival mode. Do you know survival mode will make you always fearful and scared to exist, to be, and to walk, and to move? And I don't want to be in the position where I cannot move through the ranks of how God wants me to move. When I had all that anxiety, it stifled my growth. Not my growth of learning, my growth of being. My growth of being all that I was called to be. There are times I know that I could have been further along, but I allow anxiety. I allowed situations to get me to the point where I was always at this level of angst, or I was always worrying, Most of the time I was worrying about other people, right? And dismembering myself from being fully who I am. And it's okay to not have to worry about others all the time. And I know I'm coming against some people's theology, but I think we've created a theology. We talk about self-care, but we're not fully investing in what it really means to be in self-care, right? And so just remember not to always be in survival mode. You don't always have to be in survival mode. Listen, I got to move because I only have a few minutes left. And so what does defeat actually look like? These are just some questions as you are starting fresh. Listen, I'm going to have to do a part 2 and a part 3 to this, because anybody who knows me, I have a lot to say and time is always running out, and I want to be cognizant of any time. Now, if there are any questions out there, I would like for someone to, I have Kara Solutions, who is working so wonderfully behind the scenes, and she will send me any questions, whether it's on IG, YouTube, and even when we play replay. If there are some questions, I'll come back and visit, and I will make sure that I take the responsibility to look at those questions. So if you have any questions, send them to her, or just type them in and she will give them to me. Listen, let me just give you a nugget. Let me just give you point 1. I've been giving you nuggets of how I've been reimagining leadership, right? But one of the things I want to say to us, take a moral inventory. Starting fresh, take a moral inventory. What is your value to you? Take a moral inventory. See your dreams. My girlfriend and colleague, Dr. Irie Sessions, that does this big program on dreaming big. My wife does this big teaching as a prophet on dreaming big. And everybody around me is talking about dreaming big. And you have to dream big. There's nothing wrong with seeing a bright future. I don't know anybody that ever went blind, and I have no pun intended, and I'm sorry if it offends anybody, but I don't know anybody who's gone blind seeing a brighter future. I just don't know anybody who's done it. Seeing a brighter future means you got to go ahead and dream big. And one thing, working alongside of God and working with God and allowing God to work with you means that God will give you the desires of your heart. All you have to do is ask. We don't have to constantly live in this fear mode of who God is, right? We don't have to constantly think God is a God. And I grew up Baptist, and I'm sorry, Baptist. I grew up Baptist for 36 years, and it was always we were in trouble for something, and God was going to get us about something. And there was no room to really just think outside the box, because you're going to get in trouble if you play cards on Sunday. You're going to get in trouble if you wear pants to church. You're going to get in trouble. Man, God was always. It's a wonder that people at the Capitol think the way they think, right? And we bought into those normatives, which to me are not normatives. They're a way of certain people's beliefs. So you got to create. That's why I said you got to create your own ethic. You got to create your own. Do we have any questions? Any questions? I'm not sure we have any questions because I can't see them where I sit, but I want to know if we have any questions. So we're going to do part 2 because there's a lot more I want to talk about and things that I've had to learn. And then we're going to get into the points of starting fresh. Dream big is one of them, but I got a lot I got to say about how you're dreaming and how you're exposing your dreams inappropriately or immaturely. Because sometimes you can expose a dream before it's supposed to be exposed, right? And so can't get into that now because we're an hour show, and I thought I would be done by now, but I love to talk and I love talking to my audience. Do we have any questions? Okay, and so we don't have any. Listen, again, I want you to tag, like, and share. We will be coming back to you with a part 2 and a part 3 of starting fresh and living well, right? But there will be more nuggets that I've learned as a human being on earth that I've experienced that I think will bless. I've talked to people, I've coached people, and they have told me, you need to share this. And so I am sharing it in short form, as short as I know how to share it. But understand that we will be focusing on mainly Black and brown bodies, because I would no longer dismember myself in order to assimilate to a culture of people that don't want to even bother to understand culturally how I exist in the world, right? Saying that I have, Black family, saying I have Black member, my wife is Black, my husband is Black, that doesn't get it for me. I have white members in my family, but still their experience is not the experience I have had. And so how do we reimagine this whole notion of leadership in the margins of society, no matter where we are on the spectrum? Because when people see us, y'all know this is the truth. When people see us, they don't see your PhD. They don't see that you're a grand chef. They don't see that you work for a 5-star hotel. They don't see that you're a mother of 6 wealthy and healthy children. They don't see that. They see color first, and that's how they respond. They respond to color. And we're going to get into color pretty soon. I got this whole big old thing around leading around color, and it's called absolute colors. And so we're going to kind of stop here. Well, in 1 minute, I want to leave you with something before we leave this session. Again, I will be coming back. We won't have to wait 2 weeks. I hope not, because we have guests the next two sessions. But I will come back impromptu and probably do a part 2 and a part 3 of starting fresh and leading well. But I need to share the nuggets that God has given me so I can free some of you all to be free, right? That I could free some of you to be free. You no longer have to live in a bubble in order to lead and be and exist the way God has called you to exist. There's something that one of my mentors shared with me years ago, and I always share it at every leadership function that I'm teaching, or if I'm mentoring people, I always share this. And it's called leverage. Can I close with this? And then when we close with this, we'll talk about who our next 2 guests are, and then we'll bring Kara Solutions on for, you giving support to her services that she's providing for me. One of the things I want to talk about in ending is this whole notion of leverage. Leverage, spell it out, leverage. And I want to break down what each letter means. The first L, the letter L, the only L, is let go the need. Let me tell you something. We're going to talk more about this starting fresh. But here are some nuggets I had to learn. We back in the nuggets. The nuggets were long. I didn't know they were this long. But L, let go of the need to do everything. Talking about leverage. Let go of the need to do everything. You don't have to be superwoman. You don't have to be Superman. It is okay to let the people that you report to or let the people that you oversee know that you need rest or you need time alone. You need some space. It is okay to let go of the need to do everything. The second thing is E. The first E. Evaluate your goals regularly. I know in the business world, they have this whole SMART tool, right? You know, measurement and all this other stuff and measuring your goals and stuff. Listen, let me tell you something. That didn't work for me. That did not work for me because that is a particular way of looking out how to measure your goals. I measure my goals weekly now because I don't know what I'm doing in 5 years. In the interview, I hate when they ask the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Hell, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself working here interviewing another person? You know, we don't know, right? So I hope, the only thing I can say is I hope to be living in 5 years, doing all that I can do to help people succeed. That's where I see myself. But I can't plan out the next. We planned a lot in this year and look what happened. We planned a lot for last year. Look what happened. So second E, evaluate goals regularly. Actualize your goals. Is this goal is this goal really measurable? I mean, like, dream, but is that particular goal measurable, right? Because if you don't have any goals, it would only be a dream. So now you got to put your dream down to paper and so that you can create goals. V, visualize your purpose with the end in mind. Visualize all that you know and all that you are called to be with the end in mind, right? I see myself doing a whole lot of things. I won't share them now, but I see myself at particular stages in my life at 60, at 62, at 64. I see myself. I'm visualizing, right? I'm visualizing my purpose with the end in mind. I'm visualizing how I'm dreaming with the end in mind. So the one thing that won't bother me, that if it doesn't happen, then I won't get so upset about it. The second E, be energized. Have energy, stay recharged and focused. Whatever you need to do to stay recharged and focused, right? If it's a skill you need to get, if it's going back to school for a class or a certification, keep energized. My wife, I'm so proud of her. She has she's a certified prophet, and she went through School of Prophets, actual certification school, and then she continues to always feed that mind. And she just got certified by a famous prophet. I forgot his name, and she just got certified again. So she's constantly feeding, where would God have her to be in this season of her being a prophet, right? And being prophetic, right? And then she knows when to take those seasons of rest. And so I had to speak to that because I'm proud of her and she doesn't brag about it. A lot of people don't know, but that girl got paper, right? A lot of certification. You don't have to have a PhD to have, some new skills. I was taking on a new skill, and I'm taking on new skills. And so where do you see yourself? Energize yourself. Energize yourself. Take staycations. How are you taking a staycation at home in the season of COVID? What are you doing? Going for a walk? Going for a run? Looking at your favorite movie? Are you taking naps? Are you taking rest? I mean, what do you need to stay energized? All right. R, refuse to be manipulated. Refuse to be manipulated. And again, Black and brown bodies have been manipulated for years and centuries. And one of the tools that is used for manipulation, if you will, is through a simulation. Companies, churches alike, wanting, particularly those who are Black and brown bodies in predominantly white spaces, want you to assimilate when I don't think we need to assimilate. What the organization needs to do, hear me now, what the organization, the church, and whomever we support need to do is to enculturate us, right? Find ways to enculturate rather than say, this is the way we do it, this is the way we've done it, and this is the way we're always going to do it. Then that means you're in a part of an organization that don't want change and don't seek change, right? And don't respect who you are And so you might want to relocate or get another job when the time is right. Don't jump out there and just quit. Let me say that now because I don't want y'all blaming me. All right. So we said let go of the need to do everything. E. Evaluate goals regularly. V. Visualize your purpose with the end in mind. E. Energize. Stay recharged. Even if you're retired, how are you energizing? Even if you don't work anymore, how are you energizing and making a difference in the world? And R, the other R, the R is refuse to be manipulated. A, acknowledge your limitations, but don't live by those limitations. Hear me now. Acknowledge your limitations. Do not allow people to put you in a position you ain't ready to be put into. Do not be so ready to fall into something you're not equipped for, right? But then be ready when the time is right. So acknowledge limitations. Acknowledge limitations. You can acknowledge your limitations, but do not live by them. Benchmark yourself. The G is for goals are key. Benchmark yourself. We already talked about goals, how to evaluate them regularly, but benchmark yourself regularly, right? So goals are key. Benchmark yourself regularly. And then the final E is escape. Get away and enjoy. When is the last time you ate on your porch? When is the last time you went by a campfire? When is the last time you did something different? When is the last time you just took care of your mind, your spirit, and your soul? When is the last time? So listen, in closing, have a Sankofa moment. And if some of you don't know what that is, I can't get into it right now, but have a Sankofa moment. Remember, Sankofa means to remembering our stories. And so I challenge you to remember your own story, how you got to where you are now. Remember the good things. Remember even the things that hurt that still guided you towards victory, not those things that didn't, right? What is your story and how are you remembering your own story and how did it get you to this point? But don't be seduced by others and other people's story about you, right? And so what is your own story, right? Invite the spirit, invite the whole body and the spirit as one so that you could become whole and really do all that you're called to do, to live with purpose and lead with passion. Starting fresh is not easy. Remember, we're going to part 2 and part 3, and we will advertise. So share with your friends, like, tag, and share. We're on Instagram now, we're on YouTube now, and we're on Facebook. Kara Solutions. Oh, before we get to Kara Solutions, or while she's getting that ready, listen, our next 2 guests, on March 14th, I'm telling you, please, if you can, please reschedule anything you got going on. This woman is a bad sister. She is a bad sister. That's all I can say. I've been knowing Charlotte mainly virtually for God since 2009, 2010. She's in Texas, Houston, Texas. She's a bad sister. What can I say? She is all things finance, particularly personal finance. So she's going to be coming to us, rebuilding and reimagining my wallet. Rebuilding and reimagining my wallet. This woman has been on CNN. She's been on talk shows. When I tell you she comes from good stock, she comes from good stock, and she's worked for major Fortune 500 companies, and she still coaches them. And so I just tell you right now, you're going to be excited about what she's going to bring. Rebuilding and reimagining my wallet. Listen, I need to reimagine my wallet, don't you? And we'll get into the next guest. I'll just mention his name, Dr. Donaldson from Seattle University. He is a director, I believe dean, but he's a professor, sharp brother that's going to come. He has a book out, and we're going to be dealing with his work, and we're going to be talking about how to lead from the edges. Oh my God, you don't want to miss these next 2 guests. They are badasses, and I'm going to say that they are badasses. And so, Kara Solutions, come on and let people see who you are, and let's talk about your gifts and graces. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I had to change my setup, but it's okay.
Yes, it is.
I'm
Tell
glad that
people who you are.
all right, so my name is Sue. I am the founder of Cara Solutions, and Cara offers administrative business and consulting services for dreamers, visionaries, entrepreneurs. Um, Faith-based and community-based organizations. And one of the services that I offer is remote production. So I'm going to put that overlay up. So I offer remote production. This is an example of one of the things that I do, this show that you're watching tonight. So remote production of video conferencing, administration, and tech support. I do custom branding. I help you out with show development. I also offer training, Zoom and StreamYard, Restream. There's some others out there too. And so if you have an idea for your own show and you want to get it off the ground, I can certainly help you with that. And so if you want information on this or any of my services, you can go over to my website at www.carrot-solutions.com, www.carrot-solutions.com, and we can have a free consultation. And thank you,
Hey, yes,
Victoria,
yeah, I was gonna
for
say amen like I'm in church, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Yeah, amen and ashe. Listen, is a bad sister. She's
thank you.
already started helping a couple, one of my colleagues, and will be helping some others. So listen, if you um if you want to use her services, you know how to get in touch with her. If not, hit me up and I will connect you with her.
Okay.
Listen, if you use her services, make sure you say, I saw you on Leadership on the Go. Well,
Yes,
look,
yes.
everyone, so I can get a discount. Yes, in the name of Jesus. So, listen, everyone, I want to say thank you for being a part of this. Today was more about starting fresh. I know I haven't gotten there yet, but I got so many nuggets that I would prefer to share that I've experienced, and that I want to be transparent enough to because I've been transfigured. I've been on this whole thing about transfiguration versus transformation, because we could be transformed and go back to the old same habits, but once you are transfigured, once that caterpillar is gone to a butterfly, it doesn't go back to a butterfly, right? And so that's being transfigured. And so I've been on this whole thing. So I've been transfigured since 2019, and I've been intentional about the ways in which my thought processes, the ways in which I view leadership, and the ways in which I teach it, I coach it, and I'm excited about it. So if you want services, let me know. Get in touch with me. I am a coach, and I'm a certified coach, CPC, and we've been doing this for a while. So I look forward to seeing you in the next 2 weeks, March 14th. Please mark your calendars. Please tell your friends you don't want to miss this. Listen, if your money is funny and your change is strange, you want to definitely be on this show. Leadership Reimagined, rebuilding and reimagining my wallet with Charlotte Stallings in Houston, Texas. Take it away,